Good morning. This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul?
and Jolene, and today we're talking about time travel and RPGs.
Ooh.
Ooh.
So there's all kinds of time travel in different movies and stuff. And there's some games that deal with time travel or have time travel in them. One is Time Watch,
I haven't played that game.
right? Another one is, of course, Star Trek deals with a little bit of time travel in some of its episodes. And, of course, Doctor Who, which is pretty much all about time traveling.
Yeah.
Right. And then in all these cases, what you're doing is fixing time, usually, because there's something like out there like a true time, the real time line, the real whatever, and the characters are usually sent back into that time to fix it, whatever that entails.
Okay.
So I was thinking about this because I was thinking about it because of
I thought that
Morgan.
Yeah.
Morgan is the one that brought it up. You're right. That's I was thinking about that Morgan brought it up, and I was thinking about books and shows that had time travel in them. And of course the number one that always comes to mind to me is Star Trek, because even though it's against the Prime Directive, they do it all the time in Star Trek. Even the original Star Trek.
I'm not sure it's against the Prime
I'm sure
Directive.
it is.
There's a special directive against time travel, and there's time cops also.
Okay, so they've done it, I think, in every single show of Star Trek, except for maybe
Yes.
Discovery. Who knows about Discovery? But, for example, I remember the original series, they had a guy who goes back into the 60s, and he's doing something with a missile. And was it Terry Garr or somebody is in it? Where she's like the ditzy secretary, and the guy must be like a time guy, right? Because he's trying to he has all this technology, and the original crew is trying to stop him because they think he's doing something wrong. But it turns out that he's trying to fix things. And anyway, it was a very strange episode.
That was the episode with the guy with the cat, right?
Yes,
Yeah, from a different show, or a different.
Well, he was from a different show. I
Yeah.
forget, from some show in the 60s.
Yeah.
My Man from Uncle or something like that. Who knows?
The original series has the one where they go back into time, or they get thrown back in time, and Captain Kirk, of course, falls in love with the doctor, the lady doctor, who it turns out when Spock does the research, she has to die for something to happen. And this is a common theme because they did the same thing in Deep Space Nine. So the dilemma is, do you let this person die that you know now? And Captain Kirk has that. He does what he walks away. They make him walk away, right? And she ends up getting hit by a car, I believe, and dies. And Bones won't save her. You know how William Shatner, his
Melodramatic.
his good acting that I like. It's like very, very emotional, right, for him. So that has.
Did she have to die? Bones. Yes, that's my terrible William Shatner impersonation, but there it is. I forgot about that one. I forget the name of that one. The other one I remember is he's on a missile trying to stop it or fix it. I don't know what he's doing, but he has a cat.
Yes.
Right, and the cat is
I don't know. Is like an alien.
an
I think.
alien. Yeah. I forgot about that. I think that other one is Joan Collins, right? Is the
I
lady.
believe so. Yes.
Yeah.
And then there's all kinds of them. There's in Enterprise, Captain Archer he gets thrown back because in Enterprise there's a time guy that comes is a recurring character, right?
Ah, yes.
And he goes, well, you messed this up, you're gonna have to go back.
He's
and
a
fix
time
it.
cop or something.
Yes,
Oh.
yeah, he's and Voyager has one of those too. And there's a couple good episodes where they.
The one I like is the one. I know we're talking about Star Trek a lot here, but the one where it was Deep Space Nine. It has to do with the Tribbles.
Oh yeah.
But that was weird because they actually used footage from the original show, and they kind of inserted themselves walking past the main characters.
Oh, that was really cool.
And it was really well done. I thought it was really well done.
Yeah.
because I've seen the original Tribbles one.
Yes.
And what is her name? The one with the worm inside of her.
Jadzia Dax.
Right, and she is wearing this little mini skirt, and she's all like dreamy about Mr. Captain
Kirk.
Yes. So it was really interesting. It was really nicely done. I thought it was a very good.
So these are all. I know we're talking about Star Trek, one of my favorite things.
Yes,
but these are all really cool ideas for. If you're running the Star Trek game, you could always do one of these kind of time travel things. Right. They do present paradox. No, I shouldn't say paradoxes. They do present problems. Issues.
Yes. So Doctor Who is another one. Also,
Doctor Who is very dramatic in their time travel. Some of the time travel ones, like when they go back to Pompeii.
Yeah, I like that one.
The conundrum or the issue.
Angst.
Do you stop the volcano from exploding? Do you try to save all the people? Do you try to get them out? Or do you just let history happen the way that you're supposed to? And Doctor Who says you're supposed to let history happen the way you're supposed to. But there's feelings involved that
Doesn't
make
he
it
save
hard.
somebody?
Yeah.
Doesn't that have to do with an envelope or something written down?
I don't know.
It's been a while since I've seen that one. The weird thing about it is that I really do like those shows that have time travel, even though sometimes they're kind of wonky as into how they figure things out. So there's also a Doctor Who game. There's obviously the Star Trek Adventures, but there's other Star Trek games.
Right.
Some by Decipher, some by Unicorn Productions, and FASA has made one. And then there's clones of Star Trek, unauthorized versions of them. Going back in time is something that can happen in Star Trek, but Doctor Who is definitely about time travel and fixing things in the past. Usually it's about something like that because he's a Time Lord. Hello.
Well, usually there's an alien incursion.
Right. Something's going wonky,
yeah.
Right? They're not supposed to be here. Other shows that we're not going to really go get into, but I remember as a child, is Time Tunnel.
Was that the one there was a... This is way before my time, but I remember seeing some kind of rerun with a swirly tunnel thing. Yeah.
That's the one. And of course, Quantum Leap, which is not really time traveling. He's going into people's bodies and stuff, but
it goes back in different times.
I
don't think there's a game is there a Quantum Leap game?
I don't think so.
Yeah. But those are all ideas. The Quantum Leap could give you lots of ideas because the poor guy is stuck in other people. He doesn't know who he is or what's going on.
He has to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
And how to fix them that might go wrong. And that's what the games are about, right? The game, just like in the shows or in the books, the characters have to figure out what's wrong and how to fix it. So do the players have to go and fix things that is wrong with the timeline, the authentic timeline, the real timeline, however it's stated. I really liked played in a game called Time Watch, which was run by my friend Morgan. I thought it was really well done. Of course, he ran a published adventure. I think unless you're really into writing and you're good at it, adventure, I think it's very difficult to come up with your own game, but I'm not saying it's impossible or that you can't do it.
You mean your own scenario?
Make your own scenario because there's, for reasons that we'll get into in a minute, Morgan came up with this idea. He emailed me saying, hey, you're always asking about topics for your podcast, and he listed quite a few. This was the first one on the list. And so Time Watch is by Kevin Culp. I think he kickstarted it 2015. I know the book came out in 2016. I'm not sure how soon it came after it was kickstarted, but it was published in 2016. It uses the Gumshoe system, which was made by Robin D. Laws. Gumshoe system. Now, some people don't like the Gumshoe system for combat, but for an investigative game, it is really well done. I mean, they have Black Knight agents. There is a science fiction one. Other games that use the Gumshoe system. For investigative games, it is really well done. Some people scoff at the combat system, but it's not a combat game, right? It's an investigative game. Right off the bat, you're dealing with an investigative game. Time Watch, you are basically like time cops sent to different parts of the timeline to fix things. And you have your chrono watch thing where you can jump back and forth. You set it, you jump back and forth and stuff. So I asked Morgan, I go, since he's run it quite a few times and he's run different scenarios, some tips that had come to mind for him. And he gave me quite a list, and I think we're just going to run through them and discuss them, and I think we'll talk about other stuff afterwards. So he says in Time Watch, the enemies should be also time travelers, because otherwise, if you could always use time to fix everything before the bad guys can
get there,
can act or do whatever they're going to do. You can stop them, preemptive, stopping from planning the bomb or whatever.
I'd like to stop you here and ask you about this Time Watch. That makes
it's a chrono watch.
A chrono watch.
Yes.
It reminded me that of Babylon 5 when they go back to Babylon 4. That's out in a different space.
It's stuck in different time warp or something.
Yeah, and they had the little armbands, the time to keep them synced so that they could get back. Is that kind of what the chrono watch thing is?
Well, the chrono watch actually, it's like a watch, but it looks like really chunky. Probably like a big iWatch these days. Or whatever.
Yeah.
Other than it tells time, of course. You could set it for different times, and you could push a button. And
I just want to let you know that anytime there's a watch or armband involved in a movie or a TV show, something's going to happen to one of them, and someone's going to have to fix it to get back.
Well, he doesn't mention that here.
No, I'm just saying that's what happened in Babylon 5.
Oh, of course. So it makes sense that the bad guys would be time travelers too, because otherwise it could be easily solved by preempting the.
Star Trek has that all the time, right? Someone goes back, messes up something, and then you're thrown back there, or a time cop comes along and sends you back there to fix it.
Well, it could be.
Or to find the bad guy to stop that from happening.
Well, this is specifically for Time Watch.
Yeah.
These tips.
I'm just telling you.
But some of them can be used for other games. And
that's what
Right. The mystery should be multi-layered. Figure out a chain of events. So, yes, this happens, and all these things are bad or are not with the real timeline, and you have to go and fix them in order or in some sort of fashion.
So basically you're being sent back to fix what somebody else messed up.
Right.
Because if the timeline is changed, then one, you might not be here, and two, everything's going to be different.
Yes. He says to just use real history in your adventure, which I thought was brilliant, because what he says is you mess up the timeline, that something's changed.
Right.
And then what happens is it goes, go ahead and let your players Google whatever a character that you're dealing with. A real life character called Emperor Norton or King Norton. And this guy was around the 1800s, late 1800s.
Where?
In San Francisco. So there's this guy who called himself King, what did I say?
Norton.
And he would go around passing checks, doing all kinds of weird stuff, and called himself emperor because he was emperor of some distant country. And people let him get away with it. And he did this for like 20 years, and he was quite a character. I mean, he was just a character.
Right.
In San Francisco's past. So you could Google him and see what he did in his exploits. So if you mess with his life, in the game, and say I don't think he ever got married, but had kids and stepped out of the limelight, and before he even, because he would wear a weird uniform with all kinds of medals and stuff, of course, as emperors.
As emperor, yes. Did he wear a purple also?
I don't know. I've never seen any color photos. They're all black and white. But anyway, so you could Google him and you could see what he did and stuff. And if there's any differences between what they see in the Googles or Wikipedia page or whatever, and what's happening in the game, they're like, oh, he's not doing this, or he did this and didn't do this, or whatever, and compare and contrast. It could be really exciting for players to do that.
Well, you could also use like famous things like the assassination of Martin Luther King or JFK, right? Where
he lives.
Right. Or there was Doctor Who did one called Kill Hitler. There was an episode, the idea that you would kill Hitler before he did anything bad, right? But then Doctor Who's going, well, you're going to mess everything up. What are you going to change that you That
good or for bad. I remember there was what was it? I don't even know what show it was. I was up late one night, and it was probably like what is it? The Night Gallery or something like that. Remember? But it was the new one, so it might have been. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Show I didn't like when I was a kid, scared the crap out of me. But anyway, so this guy is listening. He's a ham radio guy, and he's listening to things, and he comes across like Nazis talking, using the band, and he I don't know if he spoke German or whatever, but he figures things out. He somehow he gets them captured or something like that, right? And he's in his bunker, or I think he might be even on a boat. And so when he comes out of the boat after he gets that thing captured, comes out of the boat and he's back. He's in the United States. I think he might be in New York. And there's Nazi flags and swastikas hanging on the poles and everywhere. And so he affected the timeline, but not
in the way he thought it was.
Positive way, or in a way
Which, when you're playing timey-wimey games, that's what's going to happen, right?
Right, if you're not careful. So the idea of using real history hit me when we were playing Liminal, and we were playing the Ghost of Glencoe, right?
And Liminal encourages people to look stuff up on Google, right?
Right,
Because it's a modern kind of game, right?
Yes, it is modern.
Yeah, it's a modern
urban fantasy.
And that was the first time that I just remember when you said, "Oh, you just look it up," and it was me and Jim and Philip, and we're like, we can look stuff up, and we're like looking stuff up on our phones and the computer, and we're like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah, in that adventure, the Ghost of Glencoe, there's actually a place called Glencoe, Scotland, I believe.
Yes.
And there's a story about ghosts and why that happened and stuff. And so they're like using real world stuff to figure out what's going on.
Yes.
Another one was
which is cool if you use real history for a time game.
Oh, heck yeah.
That's a great, Morgan, of course, has great ideas. But that's a great idea to be able to look it up.
Yeah.
And see what was changed.
Right. And see what the difference is.
Yeah.
Right. And then figure out how to fix that. And then I guess almost any GM has experienced this, no matter what game you play, is players are going to do the unexpected.
Yes.
And so that means you have to work on your improv, and you got to work on your quick thinking.
You got to be on your toes.
And that can only come from experience, but anybody who's GM knows that players are going to do odd things to you, things you never expected, and therefore you really have to learn to deal with that kind of situation.
Because the players are going to come up with an idea to fix something, and you're going to be going, whoa, I never even thought of that.
Happens to me all the time. 5, there should not be an easy solution. Now, this is probably every party or every group wants a quick and dirty way out of the situation, right? They don't want to spend too much time feeling that they're spending too much time doing something that is not going to make the game go forward or solve the situation. And so they're trying for the quick fix. Do not let them have a quick fix. The adventure's over in 15 minutes. So don't let them have that quick, easy fix. No matter what convoluted scheme they come up with, there's going to be problems with their schemes. There's going to be problems with their plans. And that's what part of the role playing is, them figuring out how to planning stuff, doing stuff, and then figuring out where that planning went wrong and dealing with those situations that they didn't foresee.
Right. I'm going to go back to Star Trek on that one.
Surprise.
In Deep Space Nine, they had that episode where they go back in time, and the guy who has to lead a riot is accidentally killed. So then Cisco takes over.
Because he looks like him.
Sort of, yeah.
They just talked about, what's funny? I hate to say it, but that day, they say that the riots took place was like a couple of days ago.
I saw that, yeah.
It was on Facebook.
Maybe that's why.
Something Riot Day.
Yeah.
They named it after him, right?
Yes.
The Something Riots?
Yeah.
Like not Chicago, but.
But it was named after the guy who was accidentally killed, so it made it really hard for them, right? So he had to take over as that guy and get everything to happen, and so there was no easy way, right? Because the guy was killed and they were there, so it would totally mess up time, right? So to get out, they had to take care of it. So when you say
that was a good episode.
make it don't make it easy,
right?
that just makes the game more fun for the people.
Right. Usually, easy is like killing somebody. Right. Kill
Yeah.
somebody and prevent them from doing this.
Yeah.
Okay. No. Okay. You solved the problem. Okay. Whew, let's go home. But make it that situation where the wrong guy got killed. He lived. When he should have died. Then whatever. So you got to figure that out. I think that's a good one. I forgot about that episode. And then he says in Time Watch, tell players that some rules just don't make any sense, but they make the game run smoother. Now, this is probably a problem with a lot of games, not a lot of games, but a few games, which are dealing with complicated situations, right? So, for example, if you jump in time with your chrono watch, right? What about your clothes? You're gonna have to take the clothes that you're chrono watching to, right? You could have a backpack that has spare clothes in it, and you could, I guess, prepare yourself beforehand and before you jump. But sometimes you might be jumping and you don't know what time period you're jumping to. Let's say you originally jumped to 1950 Rome, but then by whatever circumstance you have to jump to medieval Rome. Well, those clothes, you don't have those clothes. So what they do is they have hollow clothes. Which
is like a universal translator?
No, hollow clothes is just a hologram of clothes.
Right.
And also universal translator because the spoken language isn't the same.
So that's all on their chrono watch.
Yes, I'm guessing. I didn't think about where it was, but it has to be. It's all in one unit, that chrono
I think in Doctor Who, when they get somewhere and they figure out what time it is, they can go back into the TARDIS and they have all kinds of clothes in there.
Well, it's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside.
Yeah. In Star Trek, if they're sent back in time, they got to figure these things out for themselves. How to get regular clothes.
Usually, don't they like the Terminator? They just go and steal somebody's clothes, kill them?
Yeah. I remember one of them where Data walks into it was they were back in because it was Mark Twain was in that. This one.
That's a good one.
And Data walks in and he's in his uniform, right? And they're like, he goes, "I'm French," right? And so
that explains
then
everything.
he took off his something and he got money for it.
Oh.
I don't think it was the communicator. I think it was something else, so that he could get the right kind of clothes.
I'm French. I'm from France. It explains a lot.
They go, "Oh, you're in your pajamas or something."
Because it's a onesie.
Yeah. So things like, so I like the kind of hollow thing. That's interesting.
It's like a hollow deck, but it just puts you close on.
More like a hologram.
Yeah, on you.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Well, I can see how that would make it easier for this game. What's it called?
Time Watch.
Time Watch. That could be a easy rule to make the players not have to worry about that, right?
Clothes, right?
Yeah.
Or language.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it says here there's a pause before the time jumpers can jump. Right? They put in the time, and then the thing opens up a portal, and then they have to pause to jump through it because it has to calibrate itself. But what that allows is other people to see where you're jumping to.
Oh.
Or give them a clue.
Oh.
So that's strictly for gamification purposes, so people can say, "Oh, he's jumping into looks like the Old West. Oh, I see a World War II tank." So then players don't have to figure out, well, where the hell did he go? If they jumped instantly, right?
Yeah,
so there's a pause before they jump.
How would you know where they went until something changed? And
Right.
You have
Then
to
you're
look
like,
it up.
then you got to figure out, well, what the hell? There's a lot of what is it? A lot of research going on.
Yeah.
Let's go to the local library. So I think it was pretty cool. So he gives all these tips, and I appreciate Morgan for emailing me, and then I emailed him back. Go, well, what tips do you have for Time Watch? I also like Time Watch's idea of because this is always going to be a problem with any kind of timeline game. What happens if you do something terrible or something that's going to really mess up the timeline? The classic, what happens if you go back in time and accidentally kill your grandfather, which means you could never be born, which means you can never go back and kill your grandfather.
Well, you could go back and kill your grandfather, but then you would never be born.
But then you would never be able to go back and kill your grandfather.
Yeah, but it would already be done.
That's the paradox, right? That's where things get kind of wonky in time travel. they fix it in the end game by making it troublesome to do that, right? So for them, they describe time as a river, right? In Time Watch. Now, if you step inside the river, you're just gonna cause little ripples, right? You're not gonna change the timeline because the timeline is gonna want to correct itself and will correct itself. And the only time it could ever have a substantial change is at certain junctures in time where the river narrows in
Right.
terms, and somebody does something in those instances, or you could do things over and over again, like you do something that causes a little bit of
A shift.
a shift. There's another little tributary that goes off to the side, and if you keep doing stuff and then make that water keep going, you could actually affect the timeline. It's a concerted effort to do that, and you have to do a lot of things to actually change the main timeline. And then that's when things really go weird because the timeline that you had literally disappears. Blah blah blah. Okay, so there's this paradox payment or role that you have to do anytime you do weird stuff like that. That you change things that you have already set in stone didn't really happen. So they use the example, and I think I did tell you about one of the time travelers gets stuck in a medieval prison, right? And there's nothing. And so the person they use the example, the lady time watcher searches the room, the cell, and can't find a way out. Nothing's rusted, nothing's no loose stones. So then she comes up with the idea, well, I can travel back in time to this place and put something in the wall, like a hand laser or something that let me cut myself out or pick the lock. And then the GM goes, well, you already searched the room, you already made it that there's nothing in this room that can fix you, let you out. That would cause a paradox, and that will give you a paradox roll, a very hard one. So what that means is you get I forgot what they called it. It's kind of like strain on a timeline, or stability of your own self.
Right.
And if you're too unstable, you just poof out of existence, right? So you don't want that to happen. So every time you do something like that, you have to roll, and you take instability points, and you achieve so much instability, you cease to exist. And may cause other problems. So you don't want that to happen. So the person goes, the player goes, oh, I didn't check the floors. And she goes, I'm not going to check the floors. I'm going to go back in time, dig up a stone in the floor, and stick something in underneath, and there I'll put something that'll help me get out of the cell. So the GM goes, okay, go ahead.
So that's interesting because that means that what you say as the player is what happens, right?
Right. You have set what you have set in stone what is not there, and so by changing it, you're really messing things.
Which you think about it, if you go back in time, you don't really know, and the what is going to change stuff, right? Who you're talking to or what's going on.
Right. But that's a classic thing that people do in time. Oh, I'm just going to go if they get stuck somewhere. Oh, I'm going to go back in time and...
That doesn't really happen in Star Trek.
No, because they don't really control time, right?
And you're not supposed to
Well, I'm saying that, but they usually get sent and get stuck until they fix something, and then they get pushed back to regular time. Yeah. They're not jumping back and forth on their own.
Usually it's an anomaly that sends them back in time, or in the later shows, the time cops to it.
But they don't have
temporal. They call them the temporal agents.
Temporal agents, yes. So, but they're not themselves going back and forth trying to fix things.
Right.
They just get sent back there, but either on their own or by accident or
but in this game you're actually you are the time cops, right?
Cops, right? And can go to any time you want.
Seems like a lot of power.
A lot of power. Yeah, you got to be careful.
So I would think I would want to, if I was running this kind of game, I would want it to be a very specific something in history that people could look up and figure out how to fix it, figure out what went wrong and how to fix it, versus going back and forth trying to plant stuff in floors to get yourself out of something. I don't know.
No, definitely, because like I think you gotta account for players come up with almost anything,
Yeah.
and I think at some point Morgan says that if the players really come up with something like crazy, then you should probably say no to them, saying, "Well, that's not going to work," or no, because
You don't want them to get stuck, right?
yeah, you don't want to get stuck, and you don't want it to get too convoluted. Trying to keep things straightforward. That's why he says he runs Time Watch from published adventures, because what they do is they'll have a series of events, and they're kind of like linked, right?
Right.
To
Right.
whatever. And he says, for you to write something like that, you really have to know your history, and or be really like, oh, I know about this, and I know about this, and you tweak it out a little bit. So obviously something's changed, and then you run them through that kind of a series of events.
Yeah, that would be really hard to, unless you, that's why I would go with something that you know.
Right.
Like if you know about the assassination of JFK, right? And you understand, because there's all kinds of theories, right? So you can pick one. And
well,
different things happen, right?
They talked about that, but they said killing Hitler and stuff like that. What would happen was they go to try to save him. Let's say
Right.
try to save JFK, but when they go to save him, they realize that
They accidentally killed him?
no, that's not the real JFK. Somebody's already taken him and put it in a foster. So who stole him, right? And where is the real JFK?
Well,
They say he's still alive.
and shouldn't you have...
Well, maybe
and,
not now, but...
And you know that he dies, right? So you have to keep the timeline
Or
the way it is.
you could go with a conspiracy theory. He's not really dead, but he's in the, what is it, the deep state controlling things.
So there's all kinds of things, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So Star Trek does that. I think they do it pretty well. Saul hates those episodes. Sometimes he's like, I can't stand this.
And sometimes it seems a little bit contrived, but hey, it's a time.
But it's a TV show, right?
Time travel show.
Doctor Who is the same way. Well, Doctor Who does all kinds of things.
But usually
Sometimes
Doctor Who...
even if it's in modern day, it's like the Daleks have come. Or
Right.
different kinds of things have happened. And they just have to fix it.
I like the moral questions better than the Daleks coming in and trying to destroy things. Like the Pompeii one, right?
Yeah.
There's no aliens doing weird stuff.
Well, that's what they're all moral questions,
Right.
right? If you're going back in time, that's what the time travel would be about. If they change the timeline, then you have to fix it, right? Or figure out how to make it right.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be moral dilemmas.
Like this,
Like Captain Kirk, do you let the woman die that
Right.
you really, really
She has to
like
die.
her? And Bones says or Spock says she has to die.
well, I mean, you could always she has to die. She gets hit. Bone saves her, but puts her in a comatose state, so they think she's dead. And then you whisk her away to the future, and
But then you've changed.
bada bing, bada
Yeah.
boom. I don't know. I think there's a way she could have saved her. He just didn't try hard enough. He had other...
Whatever.
Anyway, so I think time travel games are pretty freaking cool. I think as a GM, they're a little tougher to run. There's a lot of moving parts to these games.
I would go with Morgan on this one. Find a scenario or figure out like something that you know. Like if you want to do like a Star Trek episode that you've seen, then that would be kind of... But change it a little bit or do something else.
Or Doctor Who, right? Or any game where you go back in time and you have a chance of fixing something, right?
Right.
Time Watch is a little different because you're the cops and can go back in time because you have that ability, which makes it harder. But if it's a single, you just go back in time and you notice something's off and you're trying to reorientate it so things happen the way they should, at least as you remember they should, then that could be like Doctor Who does that and Star Trek does that and other TV shows. Quantum Leap does that all the time. And the Time Tunnel did that, I guess, as I remember. I don't remember watching too many episodes.
That was way before me.
That was the 60s, so things were wacky. So I think it's a very interesting genre of role-playing games. There is a lot of games out there. A lot of the small press games I looked at for time travel games, and there was more than I thought there was. Actually, there's Time Lords. There's something in German, and only written in German back in the 80s. A lot of games that came out were small presses and are no longer produced or published. But Time Watch is a pretty good one, and of course Doctor Who is all about timey-wimey stuff, and of course Star Trek. You could always throw in Star Trek and stuff. So if you could do it in Star Trek, almost any science fiction, Superman made the world go backwards and stuff and went back in time. So in almost any genre, you can put a time travel game in it. And I think it's a very interesting genre and a very interesting adventure could take place
Yes.
with time.
I'm not sure I'd want to run one, but I think it would be fun to play in.
Yes, definitely funner to play than to run.
Yeah, because you got to be on your toes all the time.
I would think so. Thanks, Morgan.
Thank you, Morgan. So there you go. This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul.
and Jolene.
And you have a good day.